Your lips are cracked. Your tongue is swollen against the roof of your mouth. The inside of your throat feels like it has been lined with sand. Not metaphorically. You can feel the grains when you swallow. You have not had water in 4 hours. It is not yet noon. It is July 3rd, 1187, and you are one of 20,000 men marching into the worst decision anyone in the Holy Land has ever made. The horns of Hattin are ahead. The water is not. You don't know that yet. What you don't know, what none of you know, is that the decision that sealed your fate was made last night in a tent by men who should have known better. And they did know better. That is the part that will haunt you.
Keep moving.
The man beside you has been walking since before dawn. You don't know his name.
Further.
He wouldn't tell you anyway.
He is a foot soldier from Champagne, one of thousands who crossed the sea because the church promised him something on the other side. Right now, he is trudging through limestone dust so thick it coats the inside of his mouth. He has a sword he can barely afford to sharpen, and a faith he is beginning to doubt. Watch him. He is the only man in this entire army who makes it home. Not because he is the strongest, not because he is the most skilled. He makes it home because at the critical moment, he will choose survival over story. Every other man around him will choose the story. The story of the cross. The story of God's favor. The story that 20,000 men told themselves on the march out of Sephoria.
In nomine Patris.
Stories don't stop arrows.
Amen.
Stories don't fill empty throats.
God wills it. Amen.
He will figure that out before it's too late. Most of them won't.
In a few hours, the men who fight the hardest today will be the first to die. The ones who run, the cowards, the deserters, or the ones who make it home alive. And somewhere on this plateau, before dawn tomorrow, the most sacred object in the Christian world will vanish forever. No Crusader will ever find it again. This is not a story about a battle. Battles are lost all the time. Armies regroup. Kingdoms recover. This is a story about what happens when belief becomes more powerful than reality. When the men in charge stop asking, "Is this true?" and start asking, "Does this feel right?" On July 3rd, 1187, feeling right cost 20,000 lives, and the Kingdom of Jerusalem never recovered. To understand how 20,000 men marched into their own graves, you need to go back one day.
The walls of Sephoria.
Yesterday, you were behind the walls of
We are
Sephoria,
safe here.
the safest position in the entire region, with a full water supply, fortified walls, and a camp that Saladin could not take by force. He knew you wouldn't come out, so he did something to make you. Saladin had been watching the Crusader army for weeks. He understood something the commanders refused to accept, that patience was a weapon. He didn't need to charge your walls. He didn't need to risk his men in open assault. He needed to find the thing you cared about more than your survival. And he found it. He always finds it. Because pride is not hard to locate in men who believe God is watching. Saladin burned Tiberias. The city, right there on the shore of the Sea of Galilee, set on fire while you watched the smoke rise from safety. Inside the citadel, the wife of the Count of Tripoli was trapped. Raymond himself, the man whose own city was burning, stood up in the war council and said, "Don't move. It's a trap. Tiberius is a sacrifice. Hold the water. Think about what that required of Raymond. His city, his wife, his home burning on the horizon, while he stood in a tent and told 20,000 men to do
Saladin
nothing.
will surround us by dawn.
He knew what
We
Saladin was
must
doing.
strike
He had
first.
fought him long enough to recognize the shape of the trap. The smoke rising over Tiberius was not a crisis. It was an invitation. And Raymond was the only man in that room who refused it. Raymond was right. Every commander in that room knew Raymond was right. And then Gerard de Ritterfort, Grand Master of the Knights Templar, leaned across the table and destroyed everything. He called Raymond a coward.
You will burn.
3 words.
God forgive me.
That was it. King Guy
City
marched.
is lost.
This is what belief does when it meets inconvenient evidence. It reaches for pride instead. De Ritterfort had personal history with Raymond, a grudge old enough to calcify into hatred. And in that moment, his hatred was louder than his judgment.
The decision is made.
He didn't argue strategy.
Prepare to march
He didn't
at
present
dawn.
evidence. He attacked the
God
man
wills
making
it.
the argument. And it worked. Because in a room full of knights raised on honor and shame,
Forward,
being
move out.
called a coward
Keep the column
was
tight.
worse than being wrong. King Guy knew the correct choice. He made the other one. That is how civilizations fall. Not in ignorance, but in full awareness. Choosing pride over survival.
You leave Sephoria before dawn. The water sources the scouts called sufficient dry up within the first 2 hours. By mid-morning, the men around you are not just slowing, they're changing. Eyes going distant, steps shortening. The sound of the column shifting from the rhythmic strike of boots on stone to something shuffling, uneven, wrong. By mid-morning, you have covered less than 10 kilometers. The column stretches for miles across open terrain. Saladin knows exactly where every one of you is. 20,000 men moving in armor across open limestone leave a trail that can be read from the hills. Saladin's scouts have been tracking you since the first step out of Sephoria. He knows your pace. He knows your formation. He knows the column is already compressing. The army that left Sephoria before dawn is not the same army that exists now. And it has barely started.
Keep moving.
Your foot soldier from Champagne can see the Sea of Galilee from here.
Further.
That is not a comfort. The water is visible, blue, calm, impossibly close, and completely unreachable. His body knows what his eyes are seeing. The brain sends the signal. The throat responds, the stomach contracts. Thirst stops being a feeling and becomes a sound. A low, constant pressure behind the eyes that doesn't stop. He stops counting the men collapsing beside him around noon. There are too many to count. There is a particular torture in being able to see the thing you were dying for. Men who have marched for hours under the sun are no longer thinking about Jerusalem. They are thinking about water. Only water. The commanders know this. They can see it happening. They order the march to continue.
We continue the march. Forward.
Stopping means admitting the decision was wrong. And That is the one thing none of them can afford to do.
Saladin still doesn't attack. He sends cavalry to cut every path to water. He lights brush fires upwind of the column. The smoke doesn't just blind you. It pulls the heat inward. Breathing becomes a decision. Each inhale brings smoke, heat, ash. Your lungs are working harder than your legs. Men are coughing blood by mid-afternoon. It thickens the air. It turns breathing into work. He is not trying to defeat you in battle. He is trying to make you so desperate that you walk into a mistake. And it is working. Because you already did. This is what gets forgotten in most accounts of Hattin. The fighting hadn't started. No swords drawn, no charges made. And the Crusader army was already losing. Losing to smoke, to sun, to the absence of water, to iron armor that no one thought to question when the march began. Saladin understood that an army's strength is not measured at the moment of engagement. It is measured at every hour before it. By midday, 20,000 men had spent most of what they had. Saladin hadn't drawn a single sword.
You don't reach water by nightfall. The springs at Hattin, your last hope, are 2 kilometers ahead. 2 kilometers. The commanders make the decision to camp on the open plateau. Raymond argues until his voice breaks. He says stopping here means dying tomorrow. 2 kilometers in the dark, in the state these men are in, across terrain Saladin controls. It is not a walk. It is a gauntlet. The commanders tell themselves they will reach the springs at dawn. They tell themselves the cross will protect them, that God has not brought them this far to abandon them on a plateau. This is the thing about certainty. It doesn't feel like a trap when you're inside it. It feels like faith. And on the night of July 3rd, faith is the most dangerous thing in the camp.
He doesn't sleep. Nobody does. Saladin lights fires around the entire perimeter. Smoke drifts into the camp for hours. Men are hallucinating from thirst by midnight. Severe dehydration does specific things to a human body. Muscles cramp without warning. Vision narrows at the edges. The mind begins producing images. Streams, rivers, the wells back home. Men reach for water that isn't there and feel nothing in their hands and don't understand why. Your soldier tries to remember what water tastes like. He can't. And the true cross sits at the center of all of it. A piece of wood that men have carried across the sea and through 100 battles because they believe it makes them invincible. Tonight, it is doing nothing. But no one says that out loud.
At first light, the infantry breaks. Not toward the enemy, toward where water should be. They abandon formation entirely and run northeast. Thirst is stronger than orders, stronger than fear.
It's happening exactly
Raymond
as I
watches him
predicted.
go. The battle is already over. These are not cowards. Understand that. These are men who have been marching for 20 hours without water, in iron armor, through smoke and heat, on a plateau that offers no shade and no mercy. Their bodies made a decision that their commanders wouldn't. When the infantry breaks, the cavalry loses its shield. The formation any medieval army depends on
Infantry holding the line while cavalry strikes. Collapses instantly.
The moon is high.
Saladin
They are
has
restless.
been waiting for exactly this moment.
Not yet.
He has been
We are
patient
ready.
for 2 days. He doesn't need to be patient anymore. Saladin attacks at dawn. The Crusader cavalry charges magnificently, desperately, and breaks through twice. It changes nothing. There is nowhere to go. They ride back in. The battle was lost the moment you left Sephoria. There is something almost unbearable about those 2 charges. The knights of the Crusader army were among the most feared heavy cavalry in the world. In open field, rested, watered, they would have been devastating. On this plateau, on this morning, they broke through the line and found nothing on the other side. No city, no water, no reinforcements, no retreat. Just more of Saladin's army and a plateau, and the sun already climbing. They turned around and rode back into the circle. That is the image that defines Hattin. Not the defeat, but the moment the knights broke through and had nowhere to go. That is what a trap looks like from the inside.
King Guy's red royal tent is the battle standard. It falls, raised once, falls again, raised twice. The 3rd time, it does not rise. Saladin's son begins to weep. The Franks have lost. Saladin's son told his father, "I killed them." Saladin replied, "You have not killed them until the tent falls." Think about what that exchange reveals. Even Saladin, the man who engineered this entire catastrophe, watched that tent with uncertainty. Because he knew what he was fighting. Not just an army, a belief system, something that didn't fall easily. When the tent finally stayed down, his son wept. Not from grief, from the weight of what had just happened. The Crusader kingdom had not simply lost a battle. It had lost the thing that made it believe it could not lose.
Your foot soldier from Champagne runs. He hates himself for it. He drops his sword and runs northeast. He reaches water. He collapses into it.
God, give me strength.
He is alive. He will carry this day for the rest of his life.
They're still coming.
Not the glory. There is none. Not the meaning. He hasn't figured that out yet. Just the sound of his own breathing. Cold water. The absence of smoke. And behind him, the plateau where 20,000 men made the wrong choice. He made the right one. Not the honorable one. Not the brave one. The right one. He will go home to Champagne. He will never speak of this.
The true cross is captured at Hattin, taken to Damascus, and then it disappears. It has never been found. For the Crusaders, this was not a symbolic loss. It was an existential one. This was the object carried into battle for decades. The thing that made ordinary men believe they were protected by something beyond human power. And Saladin took it. He didn't destroy it publicly. He didn't display it as a trophy. He took it to Damascus, and then nothing. Historians have argued for centuries. Was it hidden, destroyed, traded, lost in a fire? Nobody knows. What we know is this. Without it, the Crusader states never fully recovered their certainty. And certainty, as Hattin proved,
was the only thing holding the kingdom together. Saladin ransoms almost every captured knight. He makes one exception. Every Templar and Hospitaller is executed. It takes all afternoon. This was not cruelty, it was strategy. And that distinction matters. The Templars and Hospitallers were the professional military corps of the Crusader states. They didn't go home. They didn't retire. They fought until the order recalled them or until they died. Ransom a regular knight, and he goes back to France. Ransom a Templar, and he is back on the field within a year. Saladin understood that mercy, in this case, was a liability. So he offered the Templars a choice: convert or die. They died. Every one of them. 200 men, executed in sequence on the afternoon of July 4th, 1187. By volunteers, scholars, students, men who had never killed before. Saladin let them do it as an act of religious duty. It took hours. Nobody who was there forgot it.
Hattin wasn't lost by cowards. It was lost by belief. 20,000 men trusted a story more than reality. That story never died. Within 3 months of Hattin, Saladin had taken Jerusalem. The city the First Crusade captured in 1099, the city tens of thousands died to reach and hold, fell in less than a season, because the army that might have defended it was bones on a plateau in Galilee. All of it. Jerusalem, the kingdom, the dream, traced back to one night in a tent, to 3 words. He called Raymond a coward. And a king who knew better chose pride over survival. The same choice gets made every day. In boardrooms, in governments, in every room where the person who is right gets silenced by the person who is loudest. Hattin is not ancient history. It is a template.
You survived, Hattin, because you ran. The others are bones in the Galilean sun. The kingdom didn't fall to Saladin. It fell to certainty. And that certainty still exists. It exists in every room where the wrong decision gets made because the right one was inconvenient. In every moment where pride walks in and reason walks out. The foot soldier from Champagne made it home because he stopped believing the story long enough to survive it. Most people never do. The question Hattin leaves you with is not, would you have fought bravely? The question is, would you have run? Next time, we go further.